Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Coffee Talk! Today, we're talking about Nikola Tesla. Was he just a genius, or was he an oracle of demonic origins? Don't. So, many of you know who Nikola Tesla was, which we're just going to call Tesla from here on out. And no, he's not the guy that invented the new electric car. Well, he kind of did, but not really. It's named after him. Nikola Tesla was a 19th and 20th century genius and inventor. If you look him up from a purely historical perspective, you will mostly find the well-told story of his battle of wits and will with Thomas Edison, the famous inventor, the Wizard of Menlo Park. That Tesla was an inventor. He had a mechanical mind. He was definitely a genius. He was said to be able to envision blueprints in an expanded, blowout way so he could see a machine and he could, in his mind, envision it, break out all of its parts and examine each part in the vision in his mind. And then not only that, he could turn it in 360 degrees so it was like a 3D model that operated inside of his mind. And that is not uncommon for geniuses. It's kind of the way our brains work. I can do the same thing with music. I can play full motion, full color video forwards and backwards in my mind. I can envision music in a non-linear format. I can play one song while listening to another in my head. Don't. We ought to do a video around here on the mind of a genius, because I've shared some of that stuff, especially with other musicians, and it blows them away. But Tesla had that kind of mind, even a greater than mine. I'm sure he was a greater genius. Or was he in touch with extraterrestrial / demonic beings? Don't. Ultimately, Tesla both won and lost the battle with Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison discredited his form of electricity, alternating current, which is what we currently use today to power the world. Edison had invented and popularized DC current, direct current. The problem with direct current is that you had to have a power station every half a mile. Can you imagine having a power plant every half a mile? But the alternating current method that Tesla designed and more or less perfected allowed you to transmit electrical current for miles, for hundreds of miles. And this allowed you to have a central power plant that could power the entire portion of the country. And it's what today we call the power grid is based on. And I think through that process in his early 20s, Tesla was relying upon his immense mental acuity and power as a genius. And that he was able to handle any kind of mechanical or electrical problem in a system through the use of his own brain. But something happened after he won / lost the alternating current, direct current war with Thomas Edison, that he was through the process to save his invention and make sure that alternating current would power the world. He had to squander his entire fortune, and it left him alone. And Tesla would die alone in 1943 in a rented room in a hotel in New York City. And he would die a pauper. But his ideas and the things that, especially later in life, he envisioned, that the things that he put into his research would give birth to things like air, air and solar power. He would contribute to things like torpedoes. He would contribute to things that we take for granted now, not to mention the power grid. And the list of things that we currently enjoy, from your microwave to your satellite television, were all envisioned first by Tesla. And even the helicopter was something that he was one of the first modern people to sketch out. And part of this coffee talk that's going to be so interesting is also how this ties with the federal government, the men in black, and their habit of seizing geniuses' research to put it in a top secret mode so they can develop it into weaponry and have an edge over our enemies. Instead of using it to benefit mankind, it was hijacked to use for war. Don't. In fact, few people know that Tesla worked with Albert Einstein on the Philadelphia experiment. Do. There's so many do's in this darn show. I didn't know that. You know, the Philadelphia experiment is seen as mythology to a lot of people, but under the Freedom of Information Act and the declassification of documents, we know that the Philadelphia experiment was real. It happened. It was a joint effort that involved both Tesla and Albert Einstein in the attempt to try to make a ship invisible on radar. But the mythology of that is that purportedly, according to the mythology, the project went bad, real bad, and some people lost their lives in a horrific way. And they got more than just being invisible on radar. They discovered invisibility. Don't. But that's for next week's Coffee Talk when we're going to talk about the Philadelphia experiment. So check in next Friday/Saturday for that Coffee Talk. But what I want to talk about is 1899. 1899, the number alone is, if you break it down in using numerology, equals 666. Insert your own do. That Tesla went from being a mechanically minded genius and an electrical expert to being a visionary of things that are still yet to be completely discovered. It's why Elon Musk named his car after him. Tesla was said to have created an electric car in the 1940s that would, or it might have even been the 30s, that ran completely on electricity and could go up to 90 miles an hour, which is something that we wouldn't actually produce in this world until recent times. And so, but 1899 was a pivotal year for him. It's when he comes to Colorado Springs and he gets a grant from J.P. Morgan to create a radio station that will be able to send a radio signal around the globe or across the flat earth, depending on who you are. You know, I'll never do a video about that. But yeah, he kind of duped J.P. Morgan because, yes, he was kind of, especially at first, working on a radio transmitter. It was really an excuse for him to experiment with free energy. And Tesla had a vision for the world that he sketched out in detail, and he had all the pieces in place and the inventions ready to go to create a new world where energy was free to everyone, where all of your devices worked on a wireless power grid that floated in the air and was suspended in the atmosphere and also generated through the ground, basically turning the earth into a giant electric power station and transmission hub. And he also envisioned the devices that would run on this electricity that was harmless to humans, but was available, invisibly available to anyone who had a device that could run on it. And so he could see your household appliances where you don't plug them in, where you can take them camping, where you can go anywhere in the world and your device works. He envisioned drones that ran on this that would send packages around the earth or even deliver weapons packages, as it were, in times of war. Of course, many of you have heard of his death ray, which is actually a weapon that was on the drawing board, ready to go into deep development, into bringing it into reality. And it was competing with Einstein and Oppenheimer's nuclear bomb. And the government decided eventually to go with the nuclear bomb and put their energies there to end World War II instead of into Tesla's death ray, which worked once again through the method of sending high voltage electricity through the air. You can send it through where it's harmless and is distributed for use, but you could also focus it like an electrical laser beam and send a lightning bolt that would sink a ship or destroy a city or pull aircraft out of the air. And this technology is something that the government never stopped working on and is really behind what we now call a microwave weapon, which many of you know I did a video called Tesla's Death Ray, the most frightening night of my life. That's going to be in my catalog of videos if you want to watch that. It's the true story of when operatives, I believe, associated with the federal government used this on me in an attempt to subdue me in the night so they could plant things in my house potentially. I know it sounds paranoid, but watch that show and you'll know what I'm talking about. But the microwave weapon basically can boil you to death from the inside out. That it's a way of transmitting a targeted weapon through the air in a way that on low can cause disorientation, nausea, the fight or flight instinct causing you to break out in sweat and have a racing heart. And if they turn it up, it will make you flop on like a fish in unconsciousness. And if they turn it up another level, you just explode from the inside out. So Tesla was actively creating weapons. So there's a real attitude, especially amongst the ancient alien theorists, that Tesla was in touch with good aliens who had good intentions, because many of the things like free energy that he purportedly promoted would be very useful to mankind and considered a good thing. However, he really swapped over midway through his career and started trying, well, around World War II, started focusing on how his inventions could be used and his ideas could be used to create deadly weapons, not unlike the way Einstein, who was a theoretical, I'm tongue-tied today. I can't talk, and I'm not editing it out. That's how I do. I just power through it. He was a theoretical physicist. That's a mouthful, so you got to give me a break there. But, you know, how did he become a weapons designer? Well, he was co-opted by the government, and the same thing was going on with Tesla, which makes me think that maybe he wasn't in touch with angels or good entities, but maybe he was channeling demons. Don't. Well, what makes you think that, Sage? Well, 1899, he creates this radio antenna for J.P. Morgan, but instead of using it to experiment on long distance communication, at first he does that, but then he switches gears and secretly starts creating a free energy distribution system that can be linked to some of the ancient alien theorists who talk about pyramids being giant generators and that obelisks being transmission towers to create a web of free electricity that would encompass the globe. Don't. Many people believe that was the technology of Atlantis, that this was alien technology, fallen angel technology, however you want to see it, whether this was men of renown in the days of Atlantis, or these were transplants from Mars or some other nearby planet that had become uninhabitable, is a matter of debate. And so, but I look at it this way. He received a signal in the very beginning of his time at Colorado Springs experimenting with long distance communication. He is said to have received a signal that was a code that consisted mainly of the number 3. And there are a few videos that talk about Tesla's obsession with 3, 6, and 9, which all those numbers can be broke down to the number of the beast, 666. And I've talked about on this channel how I believe that the beast will be somehow technologically powered, that it won't necessarily be spiritual power, but some kind of technology that is beyond our understanding. I can't remember what famous person said it, but the saying goes that magic is just technology that we don't yet understand. And so the line between spiritual magic and technology has always been blurred. And so he receives this coded message as he's listening. He creates a receiver and a transmitter, and the first thing he wants to do is listen and see if there's anything or anyone in the universe that also is transmitting. And he picks up this signal from seemingly outer space. It's at this moment that you start to see an explosion in Tesla's vision, that he seems to be able to see the future. He seems to be able to predict what's going to be the reality in the future. And we are living now in a time when Tesla's visions are becoming reality, right down to the electric car named in his honor. And so he was somehow a man many decades, if not hundreds of years ahead of his time, to the point where he was very misunderstood. He was dismissed as a crackpot, and his communication that he believed was coming from Martians was a great deal of the uh, fuel that they used to discredit him and make him look like a kook. But could he actually have been receiving these secret messages from aliens or demons or however you want to look at it? Were they angels? I don't know. The Tesla death ray does not sound like an angelic device, right? Just saying. And if you've owned a Tesla car, you probably think it's straight from hell too. Sorry. Some people love them or some people hate them. They're definitely not the same kind of beast as the internal combustion engine, but it's a thing all its own. It's definitely the future of transportation. There's no doubt about it. So the big question is, was Tesla a genius or was he getting downloads? All you got to do is look at his own writings to know that he was getting downloads. He proclaimed he was getting downloads. He proclaimed that things would just come to him. Ideas would just pop into his mind. He was having visions. He was having visions of the future. He was seeing this technology expanded to where we don't have cars that run on fossil fuels. We have electric anti-gravity flying machines that work off of this electrical grid and allow us to seamlessly, without injury, like car accidents are dangerous, but these flying machines were said to be in his writings more safe than vehicles because of the anti-gravity protection that you get when you're inside of an anti-gravity plasma field. You are immune to a thing called G-forces. So G-forces are what kills you in a wreck. And G-forces is what causes the damage. That's why speed kills, because it increases G-force. And the anti-gravity devices that Tesla envisioned are very much in line with some of the other Coffee Talk subjects about backwards engineering from found alien spacecraft. And so he might have been exposed to alien technology in that way, except he passed away before Roswell. And Roswell is kind of where it all started, in my opinion. So he was if you look at it in spiritual terms, he was the John the Baptist to the Messiah of the technology when it crashed. Like, he was the precursor. He set the wheel in motion. And so if the aliens or demons or whatever you want to call them's intention was to release this technology on the earth to separate us from God, which I believe technology is just that. It's designed to separate us from God. It's an alternative to spirituality, and that all technology, more or less at its root, has an evil core. And I think the fruit of that is seen in our current society. So Tesla claimed he was in touch with other entities. Tesla claimed that he was getting some kind of supernatural intuition and vision that was leading his research. And he was so far ahead of his time that we are still interpreting the things that he envisioned so long ago. And, you know, another thing happened. Hang on, I'm going to need some more coffee. Tesla electrocuted himself nearly to death in an experiment gone wrong during his time at Colorado Springs. That he was exposed to, I think I heard it was a 6 million volt lightning bolt that had him locked in place and was about to cook him from the inside out, and he was paralyzed. And luckily he was saved by one of his lab assistants who could turn it off. But that experience gave him what some might call a near-death experience, that it somehow affected the way that his mind and body and spirit worked together. And that in that moment when he was being electrocuted for those few moments, he claimed to have saw the future and the past, and the pathway from the past to the future, to the present, to the future. He envisioned his inventions eventually transforming the world. He's quoted as saying, "The present is theirs, but the future is mine." and he knew that his technology would survive and become the basis for the future. He knew it on some level, and he was said to have been given this vision while being electrocuted. That after this moment in time, his genius mind becomes more than just genius. It becomes some supernatural source or computer that he can draw on at any moment. That the mysteries of the universe were plain to him after this moment. And he had a big fixation on Martians, on the fact that there was still colonies on Mars that were survivors. And he basically believed the ancient alien theory that this planet was seeded by survivors of a Martian cataclysm that caused them to have to flee their planet for greener pastures, and that even the story of creation is a story of these highly technologically advanced individuals terraforming our Earth into a place where they could live. And it even goes back to the fact that the reason, do you ever wonder why we love gold so much? Why is gold jewelry? Why is it valuable? Why do we get obsessed with it? What is gold fever? And some would say that that was put into our DNA so that we would mine gold for the Martians, who were using it to repair their own atmosphere that they destroyed in some kind of thermal nuclear holocaust or a solar flare, mass coronal ejection or something. So, was he talking to Martians? Did he get some kind of download? Did they access him some way? Was he more than just a genius? And if so, were these aliens or were they demons? I think the numerology and his obsession with 3, 6, and 9, which in numerology always breaks down to 666, that is the earmark. It's the beast. I'm telling you, technology is the beast. It is a number of a man, and it might be the number of Tesla. Don, don, don. That even though the man expired in that hotel in New York, his vision lives on. He's most definitely one of the most interesting characters in history, especially modern history. And when you get past the hype, when you get past the smear campaigns, when you get past the prejudice that was against him, you start to understand that he did have good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. His death ray will be fully manifested someday and replace nuclear weapons as a weapon of mass destruction. Of this, I'm certain. Having been a victim of a smaller, portable version of it, I could see how it could be something that could destroy entire cities or even continents. So, was he talking to devils? More than likely. The numerology tends to suggest they put the signature on it so that those of us who know and understand things can pinpoint it. It is, I believe, a demonic plot to introduce advanced technology to replace God, to make us like God. It's the Adam and Eve story all over again. Oh, you won't surely die. You'll be like God. That Tesla wanted to create a world where we were like the gods of old, where we were like the fallen angels, where we were like the Nephilim, where we had, flying machines, free energy, deadly lightning bolt weapons. And this is also the vision of the fallen angels as manifested in the Atlantean myth. And just like the Martians destroyed their planet before they came here, their spirit and their nature is going to drive this planet to the same destiny through this demonic technology. And you might say, Sage, but you use the demonic technology. I do. If I find a weapon on the battlefield, I'm going to pick it up and use it against the enemy. That's the bottom line, and that's what we do on this channel. I'm telling you that, yes, I believe Tesla was channeling demons. I believe they chose him because of his genius, because they target geniuses. And I've been targeted since the day I was born, and every genius I ever met has the same kind of story. And they targeted him as well. And when he wouldn't play ball, when he wouldn't do what they said, when he wouldn't give in to greed, I can say the man was not greedy. It's why he died poor. But I also believe he might have been under a grand deception, that the utopian society he saw for the future is actually a way of making hell on earth. And these weapons, when fully realized, whether they're nuclear, whether they're electrical, whether they're electromagnetic. The bottom line is they're dangerous, and they will eventually be used to destroy all of humanity and this planet and vaporize our atmosphere, just like it happened wherever these entities came from. I'm not discounting the concept of God and the fallen angels and the story of Enoch and the story of Noah and the story. I just believe that um, we tend to think in woo ghosts and spirits when in reality magic is just technology that we don't understand, that God operates in the spirit realm primarily, and that's why this technology replaces God in the hearts of men, because it makes you like God, but it's not the same thing. It's technology. And one thing I can tell you on this channel, I preach, and I preach about spiritual authority and power. And I preach that the power of what some New Agers call manifestation, I call it getting what you need from God. But this ability to harness supernatural vibrational energy to will the very shape of the world to your will, to bend it to your will. And the only one that can do that is God, and the only way you can do that is to align your will with God's will. But that is the future utopia, the New Jerusalem, the spirit realm, not technology. Technology is not from God. Technology is designed to replace God. And so, do I believe that Tesla may have been a man of good intentions, might have been a man of pure heart? He was co opted, and his technology will eventually destroy the world. Tell me what you think in the comment section, and go ahead and feel free to make fun of my tongue-tied moment there in the middle, because I think it's funny too. If you got anything from this coffee talk, if you were entertained, if you were enlightened, if you agree, then please support this channel. You can support it first level by just hitting the thumbs up. You can subscribe if you're not already. You can hit the bell indicator so you get, and sometimes you got to do that a bunch because YouTube don't necessarily like me. But really importantly as well, I need a financial contribution from you. So give me a tip, buy me some coffee, buy me lunch. There's a PayPal link in the description. You can send something to my P.O. box. You can write me a letter and an email, and I try to read them all. Sometimes I miss one here and there if a bunch of them come at once, but I reply to a lot of them as well. So do all those things to support this channel. I'm about out of coffee, and I'm about out of time. Join us next week when our coffee talk is going to be about the Philadelphia experiment, and you can hold me to that. I'm gonna do my best, unless God changes my path, which happens from time to time. I hope you had fun, and we'll see you next time on Coffee Talk.